This is Ace from Space.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ace Frehley.
Ace Frehley was gone. But no one expected what Gene Simmons would say at his funeral. The room froze, not because of the music, but because of Gene's words. It wasn't a eulogy. It was a confession, one that would forever change how millions see Kiss. The facts before the fall. For months, Ace Frehley pushed himself to the limit. Late-night sessions, quick coffee breaks, 8+ hours in the studio, habits he'd had since the early 1970s. If I'm not sweating, I'm not working. During a final test take at Morristown Studios, he lost his balance and went down by the amp. The head injury led to a hidden brain hemorrhage. A couple of days later, after a final consultation in mid-October, doctors advised the family to prepare for ventilation support. By the night of October 15th, his condition turned critical. At 2:14 a.m. the next day, the monitor went silent. Ace was 74. That's the fact. But here's what didn't make sense. Gene Simmons, Ace's constant opponent in debates over pace, discipline, and the Kiss brand, stayed silent until the ceremony. No tweet, no comment. Why? People expected formal words from Paul Stanley and Peter Criss, but the key was a different artifact. A 1981 cassette and one private recording that wasn't part of Origins or 10,000 Volts in 2024. That tape would later flip the usual story about the problem guitarist and Gene's iron discipline. For now, it was just a heavy pause before a confession. The headlines came fast, but the silence was louder. Everyone had something to say except the one man who'd shared the stage, the spotlight, and the wars. And when he finally chose to speak, it wasn't to the press. It was standing over a casket. Posts flood in. Gene doesn't. When the death notice appeared in the morning roundup on October 17, 2024, the rock world exhaled and froze. Within an hour, posts filled social media. Paul Stanley wrote, "This loss is bigger than music. He was our soul." Peter Criss called him the electric heart of Kiss. But Gene Simmons, who had argued with Ace since the Casablanca Records days over merchandising rights, kept silent. No tweet, no line, no press release. Not until the day of the funeral, October 20th, Morristown, St. Peter's Episcopal Church. No spotlights, just an old Les Paul by the casket. When Gene stepped up to the lectern, he didn't look like the symbol of Kiss. He looked like a man with nowhere left to hide. He lowered his eyes, took a breath, and said, "I never told him this, because I didn't know how." The room went absolutely still. Off-camera years, on-tape proof. While some argued about legacy, an actress stood up in the room, someone almost no one knew. She said she and Ace lived together for a long time in the Los Angeles suburbs after he first left Kiss. They met at night in a small private studio owned by a mutual friend, with no cameras and no reporters. No photos, no joint interviews, no shout-outs to the press. That's how they kept the silence. And there was just one piece of proof to this story. A personal recording Ace made separate from any album, on old analog gear. Not for sale, not for a label, but when the time comes, just play it. That day, the time finally came. 1981 on tape. Jealousy in public. Gene continued. His voice trembled, just a little, in a way no one had ever heard from him. "When Ace left the band, I told everyone he couldn't keep up. That was a lie. The truth is, I was jealous." A collective gasp. Even Paul looked stunned. He had something we could never copy, raw honesty. He didn't play for money. He played like every note could save his life. Then Gene pulled a small cassette from his pocket. This was recorded in 1981. Ace gave it to me the day he left. I never played it until last night. He turned it over in his hands for a long moment, as if deciding whether to break the silence at all. Inside, no hit and no show of technique. A slow acoustic ballad, a few simple moves, no drums, no backing vocals. And at the end, a short message, almost whispered straight into the mic, for the one person who understood him outside of music. The track was too personal to ever be a bonus cut. But on this day, it became the only right ending. He set the cassette into a small player beside the casket. Static, cracked, and the soft acoustic began. No drums, no distortion, only Ace's voice, almost a whisper. "This is for the only person who understands me outside of music." No one moved. It wasn't a Kiss anthem. It was a goodbye. 46 seconds, one bell. When the track ended, Gene wiped his eyes. "I spent years building a brand," he said. "Ace built a soul." He stepped away from the mic and sat down, leaving the room in complete silence. And then even the toughest ones, the people who'd lived through every Kiss conflict and reunion, broke. The man who once breathed fire looked small, vulnerable, deeply human. And for the first time, Gene Simmons said what the world already felt, that Kiss without Ace is just makeup. At St. Peter's Episcopal Church, simple memorial programs with the dates 1951 to 2025 were handed out by noon. On the front pew sat Paul Stanley, Peter Criss, and Ace's daughter Monique. Next to the Les Paul lay his silver Spaceman pick. After Gene's words, the room stood still for 46 seconds. No applause, no movement. Only the bell outside marked a single, heavy strike. Coffee, boards, and the last shift. On the day before his last, everything looked familiar. A quick coffee and back to the boards. Text said Ace could keep an 8-hour stretch, stopping only for a couple of short breaks. He was checking the same clean moves he'd returned to since the early 1980s, arguing with himself again, leave it as is, or nudge the detail half a step. He didn't add overload to the sound. The opposite, he stripped things away so it could breathe. And it seems that stubborn need to be honest in every note came with a price. Exhaustion, a loss of balance, and that fall by the amp that music couldn't save him from. After the candles, what remains? After the ceremony, fans gathered by the entrance. Candles, old vinyl, posters from Alive 2 in 1977, and the Love Gun Tour. Reporters waited for more, but Gene only whispered, "This tape, it was his real goodbye. I just helped people hear it." Later, Ace's daughter, Monique FREHLEY, confirmed, a cassette titled Goldie Star, a personal recording made in 1981. Ace wanted it played only once when the story was over. And that's exactly what happened. 2 days later, a memorial night was held at Gibson Garage, Nashville, where musicians performed without stage makeup. Tributes poured in from around the world. Metallica, Foo Fighters. And among the words that stuck the most, you could hear, Tom Morello, "No need for complicated techniques, just a sound at the right time in the right place. Like Ace is enough to make people remember it for a lifetime." And then, one more line, as a summary of a path. Dave Grohl, Ace's performance with the smoke effect from the guitar was one of the first musical memories that made him decide to pursue a career. People remembering him weren't only rock musicians. Lady Gaga spoke of Spaceman as an image that teaches you not to hide behind trends and to hold the stage with your own character. Engineers and producers noted that he didn't like layered-on recordings, preferring a room feel, honest and simple. That approach is now broken down in recording courses. How to make a melody stick without piling on layers. And in every line, every post, one thought kept repeating. He didn't follow the rules. He made them. That's Ace Frehley's true legacy, not just solos, not just fire and smoke, but the courage to be yourself when pretending would have been easier. No big release, a quiet promise. After the farewell, the family began cataloging the archive. Handwritten notes, cassettes, parts of the studio rig, and those unreleased tracks only the inner circle knew about. The rights to the creative legacy passed to his daughter Monique FREHLEY. She will also curate a private trust preserving recordings in that very manner of early FREHLEY'S Comet. Simple but recognizable from the first seconds. No one's promising big releases, and maybe that's for the best. Sometimes it's enough to know the music isn't lost. It's just waiting for its right moment. Add your track to the map. If this story moved you, hit like in Ace's honor and share this video with the people you once listened to Alive 2 in 1977 with. Drop a comment on what hit you the hardest today. Gene's whisper about the real goodbye, the Goldie Star 1981 cassette, or Tom Morello's words about a simple sound at the right moment. Add your city and the first Ace track you ever heard. Let's build a memory map together. Now, answer one question. Did Gene's confession sound like an apology or respect, spoken too late? The Spaceman is gone, but the sound he left behind won't fade.